No,
mic and speakers going into each other.
Well, it depends on whether if you mute it out, it shouldn't make any difference.
Oh, right. Okay. Then I'll mute I'll open YouTube and mute it. Where would I find
that? Well, it should when you get to the
I'll just go to Richard's YouTube. I'll just go to Richard's YouTube.
Yeah, there you are. There you are.
The problem solved itself. Welcome to this week's edition of the Petty and Ill-Informed podcast, where this week we'll be discussing rabbit holes we've fallen into, and we also have an update from last week's story for you. Joining me, as always, from the sunny Emerald Isle, Kevin.
Somewhere in the Ethernet, or the ether. Yeah. Somewhere between here and the land beyond time. It's Kevin. I'm at the end of the rainbow. Let's just say that. Oh, euphoria's after me pot of gold.
I know you're feeling a bit jealous of Irish Demon, but you don't need to. Don't feel the need to compete.
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean,
pot of gold.
There we go. Now you just have to mute that there, Tom.
Yeah, I think I've got it.
Okay. All right. Well, no, all I'm saying is the old Irish Demon there, he blew up. He blew up over the week. He had 4,000 followers in a week.
Yeah, more than that.
Yeah.
He started off the week at 7. He's at 12 now.
No.
And joining us from my shores of old Blighty, good old Tom.
Cheers, guys. Pleasure to be here at short notice. Glad I could make the time. Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for filling in for Nikki, who is not available tonight. She's doing her own version of Apocalypse Now. Last time I heard.
Oh, really?
Oh, come on! The opening sequence of Apocalypse Now.
Well, there's many possibilities there. Hopefully, she's not setting herself on fire with napalm.
No, I meant the beginning sequence where he's in the hotel room.
He's rolling around. So basically, he's high on heroin or some kind of tie stick, rolling around under a fan, an overhead fan, thinking it's a helicopter.
That glorious opening monologue. I wanted a mission, and for my sins, they gave me one.
I think he actually was really. I mean, if I remember the notes on that, he actually was really drunk whenever they were filming that. He was like actually really, really paralytically drunk. And I think at one point in time, he actually does cut his hand on something, and it was a big deal during the shooting of it. That it was a good thing that he didn't film that actually wasn't filmed in chronological order, because he would have had his hand wrapped the whole time if it was that way.
There's a lot of Vietnam movies, let's be honest, but Apocalypse Now stands tall as the best one, and I will die on that hill.
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I've got a lot of time for Full Metal Jacket as well myself.
Yeah, it's a good film, but it's not as good as Apocalypse Now.
Well, but do you think that the whole idea of why Apocalypse Now was one of the better ones was because it was based on, and why we as British people, we are 3 British people here, like it because it sort of harkens back to the Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, the idea of him going up into the deepest, darkest depths of the Belgian Congo or wherever it was. And so therefore we sort of go into that sort of idea of the colonialism of that age. I mean, is that, what do you think? Because Kurtz is the same, isn't in the Heart of Darkness, isn't the bad guy's name Kurtz as well, who goes native, as it were.
I think that Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket as well, for that, were both really good, because they showed honest psychology of what soldiers have to go through.
Oh yeah. I think
it wasn't all. It wasn't like war propaganda where soldiers are these immovable objects made of mental steel and thighs of thunder. Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket showed what it's not really, but
I resent the fact that you think that I didn't ever have thunder thighs. Just to harken back to that statement you just made.
Yeah, okay, fair. But
Okay, but there are lots of there are lots of good movies like that, and then even in Afghanistan there was I think there was a really really good one about the British Army called Kilo 2 Bravo, about a British unit that got stuck. It's a true story, and just sort of the idea of how messed up the whole thing is. Anyway, I won't spoil it. But it's a good film.
Tom, you were.
Yeah, I'm still here and all good. I'm just trying to upload a picture of me or an avatar or something like that, just rather than seeing just a plain nothing.
Yeah, there was a good one about Northern Ireland too called 71. I think
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's unrealistic in the way that it's laid out, but actually, of course, that's the way it has to be. It has to be the way that it's laid out. But I don't mean that the way that the movie is laid out is wrong, but the way that the topography of Belfast was laid out, it wouldn't make sense to go the way that he went. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's fine. But it does give an example of, people get put into strange positions in these things, and they have to make these choices. And they're not quite as easy as they sound like they should be. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
No, it's are we talking about sort of some of our favorite war films in general?
Well, yeah, we could.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay, great. I'll dare to expand it there just quickly. About 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer, Rotten Tomatoes put out a list of the 100 greatest war films as they saw them, and I went through the list and I liked a lot of them, and that chain in high streets all over the countries called CEX. You're supposed to call it sex, but
yeah,
to me, that's just too obvious. So I just call it CX. But they don't do this anymore now. DVDs are worth pittance, but you used to be able to click on as many DVDs as you wanted, buy them all for like a couple of quid, and it was free postage and packaging, and I just clocked up loads and loads of war films from this list and some others from memory. And some of those were amazing. There was an animated one called Waltz with Bashir, which was about a conflict in Lebanon, between Israel and Lebanon, and a war crime that took place. But the style of animation, I've never seen anything like it before or since. It was really striking.
Right.
Other ones that really stuck with me, Dr. Strangelove. Have you guys seen Dr. Strangelove? Tell me you have.
That is a classic. Classic.
It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, When the Wind Blows, animated. It's Raymond Briggs wrote it during the Cold War as one of his graphic novels / comics, but with a very serious point to make. And it's literally, imagine an episode of Wallace and Gromit where a nuclear bomb lands, say, 50 miles away from them, and they're right on the edge of the nuclear wind. That is what this film is about. It's this ordinary, average, everyday couple in the mid-80s trying to cope with the complete collapse of civilization. It is a black comedy. It's brilliant. It's tragic. It's amazing. And It's just it's all the more powerful for its simplicity. A bomb lands, they cling on to life for a miserable couple of weeks, during which every time everything gets worse, and then it's assumed they pass away. Well, no, they do die. Not graphically, they die in their sleep.
Right.
And it is, and you don't see their bodies or anything. It's all done by implication, but it is so tastefully done. It's not easy viewing, but I absolutely loved it. and that was When the Wind Blows.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of in this Doctor Strangelove, sort of the absurdity of war aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Peter Sellers was, I would think, a big person who I think thought, in my opinion, about the irony of it all. And he was in another film called The Mouse That Roared. And I don't know, it's not a very well-known, but it's all about this sort of Central European small little principality who are living during the Cold War era. They have no money, so they decide that they're going to declare war on the United States, because after America destroys anybody in the war, they build it up like using the Marshall Plan. So they basically want America to go to war with this small little principality so that they can benefit from America modernizing their little country. It's actually kind of an interesting take on it. But I think that's what I mean. But a lot of movies, they actually do quite well, and then they sort of let themselves down. I think, Gallipoli with Mel Gibson was an excellent movie in it, film. And there's parts of it that are brilliant, parts of it that are not so brilliant. I think, A Bridge Too Far with Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
Is a wonderful thing. That sort of the battle of wills between Colonel Saito and Alec Guinness's character, and what that would lead Alec Guinness to do to sort of stop the destruction of the bridge. It's kind of an interesting, idea too. So that's just my opinion.
If we're talking, any war movie, I like Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
I like it, and I've got it on Blu-ray. It was one of the first films I bought on when I first got a Blu-ray player, because I knew it would be amazing. I just think the satire could have been so much sharper. The
book was much better with the parody and the satire. I'm not going to lie. It didn't translate that well, but it's still a good movie.
Yeah, I can still get into it totally. Yeah, I still really like that film. It just, if it had the sort of cutting edge that the way RoboCop cleverly satired and exaggerated portions of our society into a much broader futuristic problem, was brilliant. Like over-reliance on technology with Ed 209 and things like that. It was really artificial intelligence. It was really, really good. And I think Starship Troopers intellectually was a step back from that. 10 years later, it probably was. Yes. For me, I still like it, but it was a missed opportunity for something greater, I think.
Well, wasn't RoboCop like a Paul Van Hooven? Wasn't it Paul Van Hooven or something like that? That
was the same guy, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know who that was, but I think it was the same guy who did that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where they go to Mars. Get Your Ass to Mars. What's that?
Total Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah. There was a certain type. There was a Paul Van Hoven or Vanderhoven or something like that. He was like the quintessential late 80s sort of gore adventure director, and then he sort of disappeared off the face of the planet. He was there for sort of 5 or 6 years and then just never heard of him anymore.
Well, I've got all 3 DVDs in front of me, so let's check. Paul Verhoeven did RoboCop.
Yeah.
And Starship Troopers, Paul Verhoeven. Total Recall, Paul Verhoeven. You know your stuff.
Hey,
triple win. And well, again, Total Recall. I'm still a sucker for DVDs. And Total Recall I got for either £1 or 50p at the Canterbury branch of CX, just to complete the collection. I still swear by home media. It works for me.
Right. Well, it's It's a matter of, if it's better to. I mean, it's better to see it and not need it than need it and not have it, or whatever that
Yeah.
expression is.
You couldn't
I don't
have
know.
got that any worse. Glenn.
Yeah, I know. I totally made that up. I totally got that totally wrong.
You
But
just
anyway.
swing it a bit. Anyway, so we got an update from last week's story. You remember your man Cerio there?
Yes.
Went to the police station,
Yeah.
got himself trespassed, and that's important. He was trespassed. They said he was trespassed, and then he was arrested for disorderly conduct and failure to comply.
Oh, I do have a few little bits of information to add to that as well. Whenever he says the guy says, well, I'll send it to 8550 Mukilteo Speedway.
Yeah.
I knew that address because I used to work I used to work for the post office in the inspector's division, and I didn't put two and two together. And that is the address for the Mukilteo post office. And so his address was the general delivery at the U.S. Post Office. So you're right. He doesn't have a fixed abode at that point.
So it's a P.O. box then.
Yeah, or general delivery. Yeah.
Well, all right. So it's important to remember that he got trespassed. So that happened. He got trespassed. He was arrested. He was released on personal recognizance, which is bond. So anyway, and the way he spoke to the female officer was reprehensible. A few of us on the interwebs got together and put together a care package for her, which was delivered yesterday to the Officer Bell. And it was really nice. She was really happy. There's a video on the Glenn Cerio is a Dick Facebook group. The link to that is in the description. Anyway, our friend, Mr. Cerio, apparently got wind of this and turned up at the police station. Now, you might think that turning up to a police station that you've been trespassed from legally is a bad idea. And wouldn't you know it, you'd be right. So let's watch Mr. Cerio get arrested for a second time, shall we?
Yes.
They're all just chilling.
I'm not going to show the whole video. This is your man, Irish Demon again.
Police over there, do you? Let's see if we can make that happen.
These cops only got one way in and one way out. It's funny. They have to come through this door, but I think they may have already came through. 190 people in here, guys. Oh, my God. This shit's still growing. Luna, this still growing.
I love the fact that he thinks that it's because we
Holy
like
shit.
him.
Listen, Alex.
What's going on? Uh-oh.
Yeah,
It was at this moment that Glenn knew that he fucked up. And we all knew that we were about to have a great time.
Uh-oh. Can I help you? Can I help you? What is that? Okay. And your point? Who said that? Oh, so I'm being trespassed.
Watch him try to run away because he knows, because you know.
So I'm being trespassed or what? For what? I
No,
wasn't.
my friend.
Listen. I'm not doing nothing. Listen.
Now, you didn't get a look at the name tag, but that officer looked like that Officer Gonzalez again. So there you have it. Mr. Cerio went back to the same police station he was trespassed from last week. Now, pretty sure trespassing lasts more than a week. Not a legal expert. Add to that the fact that he was out on bond already. So I had hoped that given that Monday is Martin Luther King Day, he would spend 3 days in prison. That's not the case. The arrest thing was posted today, and he's got a court hearing tomorrow. But I'm just going to share this because This is important. What they've charged him with. Here we go. Here it is. Should have that ready. Anyway, so we can see here he's been charged with a felony C.
That's not
Oh,
serious.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
That's a
serious charge.
yeah. Well, he can. Yeah. Well, obviously, any grade of misdemeanor is charged. You can go to jail for a year, but you're not going to a felony. Any felony, even if it's a C, a felony. Well, obviously, a felony A is the it goes in reverse order, right? So A would be the most, heinous of the felonies, down to a C class felony, but still could end up in prison time.
So he's been charged with harassment, previous convictions, or threat to kill. That's the official charge. I don't know what that means. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I know that felony C is serious. He's got a prior conviction for a felony for reckless driving. So that's, if he's convicted, he's going to be out of the game for maybe a year or two.
Well, could yeah. I mean, could be up to. I would imagine. I don't know, but I would imagine it's usually 1 to 5 years is something like that they would be looking for prison time, and then what was I going to say? Yeah, but I've seen Glenn Cerio on other things where he's really either come close to threatening the life of a shoreline police officer, or in some cases, I would assume that you could assume that that's what he was doing. Anyway, I'm not a court. I'm not a jury or whatever, but I would imagine that Glenn Cerio, if he could have a bench trial and not have a jury, that he would actually be better off. Just
he would be much better off without a jury trial.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too, because from that standpoint, you're not going to have a lot of outstanding citizens just say this guy is, a judge actually will look at the law sort of more unbiasedly, I think, than 12 people. You never know. You never know.
You never know. So this is the story. I was yesterday. I was up late. I was thinking about going to bed. I was watching Irish Demon's live stream, and they were talking about delivering the flowers and stuff to Officer Bell. Then we get a ping from the Facebook group saying that Glenn is at the station, and the people delivering the goods, that's Tella Klein, her YouTube channel, they were ushered out quickly. Glenn literally stood on the sidewalk and yelled abuse at her child. There's video of that in the Facebook group. So that's lovely. And there was I think it got up to 1,000 people at one point in that live stream. And I know that the only reason his live stream got up to 200 because that was mostly us going over to his live stream saying get arrested repeatedly.
Right.
And it was like the collected will of all of 1,000 of us just willing him to be arrested live in front of us. And it was a good atmosphere. Irish Demon, he runs a good channel. I'm very happy for his channel blowing up like that. He deserves it. He's a very talented man. It was a good atmosphere in the channel. Sorry, I've been hogging the conversation. You guys.
No, I think that's fine. I wish I would have known that, though, personally, because I would have gone to. Well, no, strike that, Richard, strike that. Although I am very close to that location, and I could get there within 20 minutes. Okay, booted and suited, I could get there in 20 minutes. It's probably a good thing that I didn't this week, because I've had my blow-ups this week.
You have been very grumpy this week.
I have had some blow-ups, but anyway, so let's say I'm very happy with the outcome of Mr. Cerio being curtailed in a way, and I'll just leave it at that. And so,
what struck me when I watched it through was he seemed determined to get in as much trouble as he possibly could just for the sake of attention or something like that. And but now he's got some major consequences for it. You know,
Yeah, but I think,
it's just been this pattern of escalation with him, because Washington, as we said last week, is a very liberal state, and there hasn't been that much in the way of consequences for him. Even his reckless driving conviction, which he's appealing, he only got 5 days actual jail time for that and 6 months probation. So, you know, there hasn't been that many actual, I've forgotten the word.
consequences,
ramifications for his actions. And we've just seen this steady increase in escalation of his behavior. You know, he started off annoying people in post offices, and now he's screaming abuse in police stations. This whole thing started with the police in Everett when they had the nerve to ticket him. He actually talked himself into that reckless driving charge, because they were just going to give him a ticket for speeding. But he threw what we can only call a Cerio temper tantrum and talked himself into like that video we watched where we talked himself into getting his car towed.
Right. Well, I think part of the thing about him, and I it was funny. I talked to my son who worked at the grocery store around the corner from the police station last year, and he and I remember him telling me a story about this guy who was wearing these sweatpants, and he was a taller, sort of disheveled gentleman who used to come in and just yell at people and cops and stuff if they would come into the store. So I said to him, "Is that him?" And he said that was, he said he thought it was Glenn Cerio, and that but my son could talk him down a little bit. But he thought that he had sort of what was what people refer to as it's a disorder where it's like anti-authority disorder, where it's like it's an actual sort of a
we might know that in school. Hang on. Oppositional defiance disorder.
Correct. That's correct. Yes. Oppositional defiance disorder. It seems almost in that way that he cannot sort of stop himself, even if he knows he should, from taking it to the next level. You know what I mean?
He was escalating things with that woman, with the lady police officer, the woman who, sorry, that woman, the wonderful and unbelievably patient and tolerant police officer. He was saying, what is that? What is that? Just he was getting no reaction, so he was just escalating his insults and his transphobic abuse to higher and higher levels. That
right.
All it did was just incriminate him more and more, and it just got so farcical and so ridiculous. You just know,
right,
that you're not, you're having serious mental health problems on one level or another if you're going to just go that far. I felt sorry for him that he's stuck with himself.
Right. Well, that's the thing where I think Tom and you, because no, I will say this, Tom, you don't have to react in sort of a way to say if this has happened to you or not. But in my previous teaching career, I have had people get to the point where if you do not react to them in that situation, even as a sort of a 10 or 11-year-old child boy, mainly males, of course, because that's a very, very awkward time to be, a teenager, somebody that's going to prepubescent, that they do tend to just sort of dig themselves into a huge hole. There are strategies you can use on a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to sort of break, to get them out of that. But with an adult, it's sort of already, dies cast. There's not a lot you can do to sort of talk them around to it, But that's the feeling I got out of it. So although I sort of, as an adult, despise the man, let's put it that way, I think that You know, it is.
I think that's being overly generous, but okay.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, but you know, I'm just saying. I think that you know, you sort of do think back to the point where, at some point in time, maybe somebody could have done something. That doesn't mean you can. It doesn't mean you could have, but you think maybe, maybe somebody could have, but it's too late now. You know.
Gabby's nailed it on the head in the chat. She said, if you can't control your behavior, you are not allowed to be a part of society. And that's it. You know, I did feel sorry for Glenn a couple of times. I've seen some very sad videos where there was one video where he was just standing in the rain screaming abuse at police that were all ignoring him. And I was just like, oh, come on, man. Have some pride. Sort yourself out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying listen, I'm not saying that if you have a mental disorder that you should be in the general population. I'm not saying. I mean, obviously, you know, for various reasons, I think people who have a mental block or disability should be, you know, taken care of. But I mean, unfortunately, whether it's Britain or America or Canada or whatever, a lot of mentally disturbed or disabled folks end up in prison, and that's where they get warehoused. I don't know if that's necessarily, I mean, from my completely, you know, over the top liberalism, don't necessarily think that that's the best place for those folks to be, because I think they get taken advantage of. But so be it, you know, that's the way it is.
Look, psychiatric institute or jail, he needs a timeout.
Exactly. I would say it's psychiatric.
It doesn't matter which one that is. Yeah, this dude clearly needs a timeout. He needs severe consequences for his actions. He needs to be taken out of society for a bit.
Yeah. Well, even if he was in the psychiatric unit, he may not agree. Again, if he has that sort of disorder, he wouldn't agree to take his medicine. He wouldn't agree.
He wouldn't take his test. Yeah. He wouldn't respond to therapy.
No.
He'd just act all immature and stuff all the time. Sorry, I swore there. But it's just it's sad, but at the same time, you know, there's a line to when it stops being, you know, feeling bad for him, and when it's time to, you know, the dude's a menace. You're seeing his escalating behavior, and I think he's too much of a coward personally to hurt someone, but the potential's there.
Well, he is a large man, you know, that's the thing. And I think that part of the thing about it is, and you know, one of the things that you'll say about it is, even if you don't quite know what you're doing as a large man, sometimes you present a threat just because of the size and bulk that you are. I mean, it said on his arrest record, you know, on his driver's license, that he was 5'10", 205 pounds. Well, we all know that's not true. You know, on his arrest sheet, it says he weighed like 265 or something like that. So I don't know if they weighed him at the jail or whatever. But he's like I said, large man. You know, that's not tiny. No. And even if you were to fall on somebody that weighed 150 pounds, that can do you some damage. You know what I mean? So but you know, I understand what you're talking about. I mean, one of the things that we have to admit is sometimes people, you can feel sorry for them and then they still get taken to jail. I mean, look at Phil Mitchell this week.
Yeah. You know what? I was proud of Bobby this week. Yeah. That girl treated him badly, and he had every right to be like, you know what? This is it. We're done. I was proud of him.
Yeah, well, if you don't know, there, Tom, we took it to the lowest level and brought in Phil Mitchell from EastEnders.
We're totally gossiping about EastEnders right now.
I remember you talking about Cat Slater last week.
Come on.
I prefer Stacey personally.
I remember seeing in a newspaper, like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, in the days of Alfie, as you guys said, and I remember it saying Jesse Wallace wowing fellas up and down the country, and I thought, well, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'll be just disrespecting a lady, but Oh well, who am I kidding? I just did. No, she in all seriousness, she's just not. She's not the media's stereotype, which actually
No.
probably made it all the nicer to see.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I look at it like this, if you've ever been to I imagine Bangor, Northern Ireland, or Bangor, Wales, that is like she'd be a 10 on a Friday night. I know you love Welsh people, Richard.
Yeah.
But,
well, anyway, speaking. Oh, damn it!
Whatever happened? Okay, no, but you got me off track here for a second. What happened to? Was it Zoe? What was?
Yeah.
What
She
happened to
moved
her?
to Spain.
Oh, she did. Okay. Oh, so that's who they were going to. Oh, okay. All right, I get you. So
Anyway, we have a legitimate segue this week, which annoys me because speaking of EastEnders and Glenn Cerio, I thought we could discuss, rabbit holes we've fallen down because Nikki was supposed to do the topic this week, which he's not here. So, Tom, what's a rabbit hole you've fallen down?
Okay, can we just nuance the word rabbit hole with the term rabbit hole? Do you mean? Well, no. One of you guys speak first, just so I know the context and just so I'm clear on what it is.
To be honest with you, Tom, I don't have any idea what he's talking about. So you started
rabbit hole,
Richard. We're thick as pig shit. Sort us out.
A subject that's led you down a hole of other subjects, like the Donner Party would be a good example of a rabbit hole I went down. I heard about it. I became fascinated with it. I learned every element to do with that expedition, including what they ate for breakfast when they left.
Yes. One subject that you inordinately became obsessed about and then literally had to know everything about, usually to do with some form of conspiracy or something
mystery
like
or anything.
Or
it doesn't have to be.
Okay. Yeah.
I fell down the rabbit hole of First Amendment auditors. That's how I found out about Glenn's area.
Well, now just to say about the Donner Party, and it's strange. I can put my hand on my heart and say I was thinking about this just about a week ago. When I know all about it just from one source. When I was a late teenager on Channel 4 quite late at night or something like that, they showed a documentary film about 2 hours long called Death of a Wagon Train. And it just went through the whole story of the Donner Party from beginning to end. So I know all about Hastings Cutoff. I know about them being caught by the weather in the Sierra Nevada mountains by one day. I know about drawing straws to decide who died so the others might live. I remember I don't know how many names I can remember, but it stayed with me. I watched it several times. It's embedded in my long-term memory, and I know I know the story, so I get how compelling it is.
Shot and ate the Indian guides the local tribe had kindly given them. But did you know that where the Donner Party died, there's now a picnic site?
How ironic of history.
I've been there, and I have a picture of we took a picture in front of the sign at the Donner Party picnic area.
Okay. But the Donner Party, which leads to the Death Valley 49ers, which leads to the dude that snuck into Area 51. These are, this is a rabbit hole that you go down. That's what I'm talking.
It never stops. That's the point. Is that you get these sort of weird sort of ideas that spread out from there. That's that idea that it's a never-ending circle. I look at it like the Donner Party to you is like a ripple in the first drop in the water. You know what I mean?
It's the first step on a great adventure.
Yeah, that sort of spiraled out from there. And no matter what you do, you can never sort of incorporate enough information to sort of understand it.
Yeah.
So
I've watched so many documentaries like them, the Death Valley 49ers, just So that was a rabbit hole I went down. So, Tom, what is an example of a rabbit hole you went down?
Okay, now I need to know if this counts before I elaborate. I once started a project, and as I began it, the size and the scope of exactly what I was taking on became bigger and bigger and bigger, and it became a monstrosity that I was saddled with for a very long time. Does this count?
Yeah.
Okay, great. What it is, it's to do with music. I really liked industrial metal music by the time I was in the late 90s. And I said to myself, I'd been in a middle of the road rock band as a late teenager, but then I went to when I got to university, late teens, early 20s, I didn't do much. And then when I got with the beautiful lady who is now my wife in September, I got with her in February 2003. We're about to celebrate our 19th anniversary of when we got together. It was a lovely time, and I thought, right, as life was looking up, so I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make an album of my own, on my own, from scratch. That was 2002. I immediately got in touch with a primary school friend of mine called Keith Malin, and he runs a business in North London somewhere called KMR, Keith Malin Recordings or something. And he gave me the outline of what I needed to do. He said, right, you can do it all on your computer. I said, I've got an electric guitar, an electric bass, and a load of pedals. He said, right, just pick yourself up a cheap mic, and then you need this sound card for your computer. You need this mixing desk to put your guitars into that, and then that into your computer. And then you need your a MIDI keyboard to play keyboard sounds, and you plug that into the computer with USB. And the last thing you need is the software to do it all on. And the software I'm going to give you is called Cubase SE Start Edition, and that will be your music sequencer. And there are 4 virtual instruments to get you started. It'll be about 500 quid, says Keith. I said, great, nice one, mate. Here's your 500 quid. Here's my stuff. That was 2002. And then I then began work on making an album. How many years do you think it took me to make, guys?
It's still not finished.
I think it's still not finished.
No, it's complete and done.
10 years then.
Kevin?
I'm going to go with 15 years.
Kevin, you've nailed it.
Yeah. Only because of the fact that I used to DJ a lot around Britain at that point in time, and I do know these. I did make a couple of pressings of some records that I did, but it is very, very, very hard to do, and I still can do some of it, but it's very, it's kind of an interesting thing. I'd like to hear your record, by the way, sometime.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I would like to hear your music. Kevin, do you know what I've got in my head? I've got that episode of Father Ted where they write My Lovely Horse.
Yes.
Where he's like, it's just a bit of fun. And then 5 minutes later, play that beeping note.
Oh, no. It is. And it's so funny because you can go online and it's like, with the software that they have now, you can always get this guy who, has got this sort of beat mixer and everything like that. He just bangs out 2 or 3 beats on his thing, and then he just loops that. And then all of a sudden in 3 minutes, he's got this sort of, like nightclub banger, floor filler. And it's just like, that's just not how it works. That's just not how any of this works.
And I'm also, when Tom was describing the stuff he needs, I'm now picturing Tom in like this small room surrounded by musical instruments and a computer and a trained monkey, spider monkey.
Well, yeah, and the thing about it is and I won't speak for Tom, but this is one of the things that's tough. It's never good enough. You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean? It's
100%.
never good enough. And then whenever you go back to it, so a lot of times if you like, for example, if I've made a mashup for somebody, um, like it's like I'll get it to 90% done. If it's 95% done and I'm happy about it, I'm over the moon. But I never have had 100% of song where I'm 100% happy with it.
You know, there's a heck of a lot of pleasant coincidences tonight. One other one being, I coined a saying about that. The last 10% of the song takes 90% of the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let me explain quickly why it is that it took 15 years. And I'll tell you why. Because within the first year or two, I wrote 6 songs. I recorded them all. I did the guitars and wired them in. I sung into the mic, or as close approximation to singing into the mic, and recorded that in. I recorded all of the music and the songs, and bosh, it was done. But the quality was abysmal. That was a demonstration album I made. I was being a teacher. My kids got into it a bit, and the head agreed that I don't know how, but the head agreed that the school would pay for 90 CDs of mine to be pressed for the 90 kids in our year 6, and they all got one to take home. With hindsight, that was a little bit narcissistic and a little bit,
That's
you know,
rock and
I
roll,
was just
baby.
naive I was just naive. Well, it's a little bit, what's the word? No, it's not narcissistic. There's a word. Hubris, a bit.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
I don't know how you derive an adjective from the noun.
Hubristic, maybe.
Hubristic, thanks. It was a
Okay.
bit hubristic. I mean, I remember when U2 tried to do the same and said, hey, we're going to be really, really nice, and we're so magnanimous, we're going to give our album out to everybody who's got an iPhone or iTunes. And before you know it, the biggest part of the reaction that U2 were not expecting at all was loads of angry non-U2 fans who have suddenly got their phones that were already had their memory maxed out now completely jammed because they've had this update installed. They've had this compulsory update that they've had to do, and it's brought with it U2's album. There hasn't been room on their phone, and it's caused all kinds of problems. And U2 were like, and afterwards they thought, yeah, we got a bit carried away with a bit hubristic with the technology and things like that. So yeah, but anyway, I digress. Here's why it took so long. The more I learned about how to make the quality was crap, and I messaged a guy who sold me some extra virtual instruments to give better sounds and better keyboard and synthesizer sounds. He used to give me all these tips and pointers, and just a couple of them is this. He said, when you're working on the mix, look at the graphic equalizer for every track and give each of them boosts and cuts in different places. And I sort of imagined, say you've got 15 layers of music. You've got a couple of drum tracks, 2 guitars, bass, vocals, samples, several synthesizers, several keyboards, various electronic things. And you've got 15 tracks, and you're trying to fit 15 angry dinner guests around one circular table, and you have to limit how much space everyone gets. And so there's doing that. And the fact that, it's never good enough, you said, Kevin, the fact that I could go back and tweak stuff and change stuff very quickly became a curse far more than a blessing. I mean, right. I would have like I'd have a 10-second part of the song on a loop for 3 hours. And you just drown in options. I mean, right. In each track, what's the level going to be? What's the graphic equalizer going to be? What compression are you going to put in? What effects are you going to put in? Do you go back to the original sound and start tweaking that? And there's just so much to do and so much to learn. Then I had children in 2009 and 11, my dear wife and I. And then school got harder and harder. And by the teens, I mean, I had various hardware failures, software failures. I had motherboards ripped to shreds because I'd try to put a new fan on and I'd blow the CPU. I mean, that happened, hard drive failures, desperately trying to get stuff backed up and retrieved from hard drives, all kinds of problems. And it just was a snail's pace and an absolute crawl of a marathon to the end. But in the end, I did make the album. I did finish it. In 2018, I had a launch party where I had a launch party at my house. So small time, it was ridiculous. But 15 of my friends came around and we all got pissed. I played a couple of live songs. We sat on a bench in the garden. The bench collapsed. We added it to the bonfire. My mate Chris tried to climb the kid's rickety climbing frame. He's lucky he survived. And I made 100 copies of this album. I was financed by my mum because I'm that wonderfully independent at the age of 41, I think I was. No, I'd have been about 40. It was from when I was 25 to 40. This album happened, but I did finish it and I did make it, and I've got 2 CDs. I sold it for cost price, and some I gave away to some really special people, and I was able to give my mum gave me 500 quid to get it made, the CD pressed. I wanted to have a CD, and I've got my CD, and I sent the CD. I gave as much money as I got back, deducted 100 quid for the launch party, and I gave a fair chunk of the money to my mum back to say thank you. Brilliant. Care Bear Skin Rug asks how many songs. There's 9 songs. The album was always after the CD. The album was free of charge. If anyone's got a Bandcamp account, I've got a band. It's free to download on Bandcamp. Totally. I'll post a link. And if anyone doesn't have a Bandcamp account, I have it in Dropbox as well, where you can just go into it. There's a PDF of the inlay card. I wanted to do the whole thing. I made my own inlay card. I designed it all, put it all together. And I'm not going to have a midlife crisis because my work is done.
Right.
Since then, I haven't switched on that computer. That computer is sat at the back of my room off since October I don't think I've switched it on since the launch night. No, I haven't since the launch gig. So that was my album. It was I hope that the one copy of the CD I have is passed down the generations of my family till Care Bear Skin Rug, whoever you are, you're blessed. There's only one edition. I've only got one CD left. I've got one copy left, which is mine, and I've got a very knackered prototype that's been lent round, which is lent round to everybody. It didn't do anything. No one downloads it from Bandcamp, but there's a handful of people who really did like it, and I know I did the best I could. So no, it's not perfect.
No one's going to take anything away from you. You did it.
Yeah, I mean,
just doing it is the thing.
Exactly. The thing that I would do, because it was kind of a funny thing. Like I said, whenever I made my CD, it was kind of an interesting thing because I was really into. When I was growing up, I was into I was into ska music, which was in 1979.
Ska music's awesome.
Defined me in the way that Madness and Gary Newman defined everything from that point on, right? So Suggs was about 12 years older than me. Gary Newman is about also 13 years older than me, something like that. I think he was no, not quite. Gary Newman is about 9 years older than me. But Gary Newman is quintessential, synthesizer band, that everything came out of that. A lot of 80s new wave music. You can completely say from that, whether you're talking about the Thompson Twins or wherever, evolved from that music. You can make the argument, okay, Kraftwerk was pre Gary Newman. But whenever I was 19, 20, something like that, I talked to Gary Newman about it. And there's 3 main Gary Newman songs that I love. And I said, Gary, how can you, how did you do, how come there was that level of musicality at that time, sort of 1979 to 1985, 86. And basically, the way he described it, and this kind of comes to what you were talking about, Tom, too, is that on the old Moog synthesizers,
Yeah.
you could only program one bit at a time. And because people could only afford one Moog, so you'd have to record one line of it or one bit of it, and then, then you'd go back. So you'd program it into the Moog, and then you'd record that, and then you would go back, program the other bit of the Moog, and then you'd record that, and so you've got it all together. So you couldn't necessarily just tweak it, like what you were saying. You couldn't go back and say that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't sound right. And in other words, there's parts of certain songs, like Our Friends Electric, where there's a mistake in the programming, and he hears it every time that they do it. But he says, I actually like it now. And if it was one of those things where it was easily accessible to change it, it never would have gotten finished. You know what I mean? So I think because of the complexity of the time and how now everybody literally can record an album in their house. Like, for example, there's a rap artist, a couple of rap artists. One's The Streets in Britain, and Goldie Looking Chain. I mean, it seems like they can record that in their spare bedroom in their house. I think The Streets recorded it in the closet completely. That you can do it, but the problem is that a lot of people never get to the point where they feel satisfied. Like if I was that first Streets album, the original Pirate Radio, I never would have felt that was complete enough to put it out the way he did. So I actually have to just say kudos to the guy that he actually put it out there. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting. And I mean, so it just goes to show you that we're all the same way, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you've got to have your turn, Kev. You've got to have your turn, buddy. What was, Kevin, your rabbit hole?
Oh, well, that's very easy to say. My rabbit hole was Nazi aliens. And I'm telling you.
All right, I'm on board already. Don't say anything else. Like I'm balls deep in this.
Yeah. I literally know. I mean, from the very time that they started talking about the Vril and the Thule Society, and then sort of the Deglaka, the bell, the whole idea of using materials for an anti-gravity machine and all these different things that they seem to have done. That has been my main thing. I mean, that the Nazis had some sort of help from another realm, and I literally have spent years and years and years and years on it. I mean, my wife actually is a joke, because she'll say, "Do you want to come in and watch this show, this television program on the thing with me?" And I said, "I just find something new on Nazi aliens," and she just laughs, and that's the way it is. It's the Nazi alien.
The last laugh, Kevin.
Yeah.
Nazi alien.
So this theory is that the Nazis enlisted the help of extraterrestrials.
Yes.
In World War II.
Do you know what the Nazis?
Okay. Sorry, Tom.
No, just one thing that was relatively a recent discovery, like within the last 5 years, was just how massively the German army were off their tits on drugs.
Oh, now, yes.
Do you know when in 1940? One of the reasons they were, I saw this put forward as like the historian who found it was convinced this was true. One of the reasons why when they invaded Belgium and France in 1940, that they were able to be successful was because they were so off their tits on uppers and amphetamines and stuff like that, that the tanks driving all day and all night was how they were able to blast their way through the Ardennes forest and get all the way to through Sedan to the French coast of Calais. I mean, they went from Sedan to Calais in such a short time.
Yeah.
With these tanks, because they were up all day and night on drugs, and that's how they did it. And this guy, I read this, I swear I read it in the week. I read about this in the Week's magazine's The Last Word, which always gives you something really different. It gives you something to think about that you don't know is a thing. And one of them was absolutely about this, about the role of drugs and uppers and basically, so that they wanted their army to not need sleep, and that's without the historian who wrote it and was interviewed in this article said without all of that stuff they would not have made it to Calais. I mean, that's even if it's not true, it's still fascinating.
I think it is true, simply because of the fact there's a couple of things that would say that. Now, the chemical compound that they used to make this was from Japan. It was sold to German pharmaceuticals, and it was licensed and marketed under the name Pervitin.
So, by Rexel Drugs?
Yeah, no. It was Pervitin was basically, if you look up the chemical compound of it, methamphetamine. And so the Japanese actually came up with we're talking about crystal meth now. The Japanese came up with it, sold it to the Germans. The Germans used it. No, that was true previous to the war, too, because they actually had used Pervitin prior to the war. But then they used this in sort of this Pervitin. They used to sell it in different ways. They would have it as a pill. They also used it in a chocolate bar. Then they would call that Panzer chocolates. One of the things that you could say about methamphetamine when you're taking it, which makes sense for the idea of why Nazis got so insanely brutal, is that one of the signs of methamphetamine use is that you lose all sense of empathy over time. In other words, the idea that anybody else is worth anything is completely just struck. You lose all sort of relatively to the idea of human life. That's one of the problems with methamphetamine addicts, is that they just don't care. There's no sense of brutality. There's no sense of anything. And that's why, in a lot of ways, it's a dangerous thing. Now, they find out about that whenever a plane had been shot down over Britain. And one of the things that they find in this the first aid case was this tube, this gold tube foil thing, and they did the theory of it, and then they find out what this Pervitin was, at which time then the British Army decided, should we give our guys Pervitin, or should we come up with anything else? So they actually decided to, with help of the American Army, came up with benzoephedrine, and those different types of things. So one of the things that they found whenever they gave the 30 Corps in the desert the Pervitin, however, they basically kept on charging until there was nobody left. At one point in time, they would become so deadened to the fact that that they were going to kill themselves or anybody else that the British Army ended up doing it in Russia. Whenever they were doing forced marches to retreat from the Russian front, there was a unit of Nazis who were so high on this drug that they actually, their feet had gotten frozen, and they kept on marching all night until basically literally they lost their feet on this Pervitin. Just to go along with your story there, Tom.
Okay.
I think it was actually Operation Hotbox, Gabby. Get it? Drug humor. Yeah. Come on. Given that the Nazis lost World War II, they had to be extremely incompetent aliens.
Well, but you see, here's the argument on that. You don't know whether the argument is, did the Nazis have the help of the aliens directly, or were they sort of looking for the help of the Nazis that had been sort of the ancient alien idea? You see, this is the sort of the thing that we have. I mean, obviously,
I've never heard this theory. I've heard that the Nazis spent a lot of time investigating paranormal stuff, but never extraterrestrials.
Right. Well, I mean, the idea of the idea that obviously these the Indiana Jones idea that, for example, the Ark of the Covenant or the Spear of Longinus or those different things were all religious artifacts that you could use. Now, oftentimes this is the argument that we make. If for example, ideas of religious significance actually have an extraterrestrial beginning, this is the idea that, for example, that Ezekiel's wheel or the burning bush and those different things were actually brought to the planet by and misinterpreted as alien technology that we thought was given to us by a higher being that was just misinterpreted as it's a sort of Eric Von Daniken, sort of Chariot of the Gods type thing.
This is proper cool. I'm gonna fall down this rabbit hole myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's from those different things, obviously as a child, whenever I was dealing with lots of different things, I've talked about the fact that I say that fairy stories are indicative of alien abductions before, and I think that this is one of those things that I think whether you give it religious significance or whether you give this sort of folklorish significance or however you want to take a look at it, a lot of people will assume that that's because it comes from extraterrestrial origin. And when you look at the ideas of these things from sort of Mesoamerica and the things like that, the idea of Quetzalcoatl and the way that the sort of the fiery snake and those different types of things are sort of universal in a way that doesn't seem to make sense the way that we explain history at this point in time. But I think completely history is not right. But that doesn't mean that I think that aliens contributed to everything. I just think that at one point in time we were a lot more mobile than we thought we were. But proving that's a different matter.
That's one of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Good show.
Well, what was your rabbit hole?
My rabbit hole, I told you, the Donner
Donner
Party.
Party.
Well, I know.
That was the whole thing that kicked it off.
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you the ultimate rabbit hole.
I was going to say, because you can't say that wasn't it. Yeah, that
Alice in Wonderland.
No.
Bigfoot was your rabbit hole for years and years, whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And it maybe
No,
not.
well, I'll tell you the truth. Right,
Yeah.
Okay. So Tom's a vegan, right? And he showed me these disgusting pictures of his Christmas lunch that was a crime against nature, as far as I'm concerned. But this veganism, hipsters, the whole, expensive coffee shop stuff, all of this is endemic of the real problems of society. And that is Jodie Foster, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is the ultimate rabbit hole, right?
Is
all
Jodie
of this.
Foster not a vegan?
No, but it's her fault this stuff is happening.
Are you sure
People will
she's
be-
not?
Yeah,
I think you
she
should
might
look that
be.
up.
Probably is.
If,
I mean, she's
if,
a
if
celebrity.
anybody seems to me like they would be a vegan, no offense, Tom, but
Oh, you're all right. No, bring
I-
it. I can take it from Richard.
I'm from a little village in Ireland, so therefore, if it's not made out of bacon, some sort of dairy product, or something like that, it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? We don't quite know what a vegetable is where I'm from, but you know, so, but it's. But then again, that's an obviously different thing too, because have you ever, do you not think that a lot of the reasons that we need to be vegan now and have these different types of diet, is because of the fact that we don't move like we used to? I mean, there's a lot of idea about this paleo diet and types of things like that we should just have these sort of different sort of ideas of dieting and things like that. But I never quite understood it. I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of, uh, arguably we live longer now than we ever have. So is that not a good thing? I mean, I don't even know if that's a good thing. It seems like to me living to your 90 is shite, but
Say about
But-
70 before the
Yeah.
body starts proper shutting down.
well, I mean, that's the argument that you can have. I mean, the idea of the fountain of youth and in the estimation of that is tough. But I won't go. That's another one that I go down. That whole being
The
alive.
whole idea, I've never held with that. The idea of being immortal, that'd be
Yes.
so
No.
boring.
I don't see the quest. I mean, I had a friend who was into IT and AI, and he said, "Oh yeah, there's a possibility that you'll be able to get your consciousness preserved." And I'm
Digital
like,
immortality.
seriously, just I've seen
Digital
that episode.
immortality is
seen
the
that episode.
Diet Coke of immortalities.
Oh, honestly, well put, Rich. Yeah.
Well, I think you're right on the minute. That you two of you just sort of struck on a point there that I think that none of us have sort of the idea. For a lot of times people think that the world is the idea. Like we are just basically the thought process of somebody, that we all live in the thoughts of the creator being, right? We are little bits of thought in the creator's imagination and mind. Now, if that's true, and he's immortal, at this point in time, he's probably losing a step, and that's why world sucks at this point in time, because he's gone a little nuts.
True that. I mean, I can't think of a fate worse than living forever. I mean,
that would have to drive you insane.
Oh God, if you lived forever, oh God, you know what it would be like towards the end? I mean, I've watched an episode of Brian Cox's what is it, Wonders of the Universe, and it talks about like time scales that are as stupid as the distances between galaxies, and they say, oh, in this many quintillion whatever illion years, everything will be gone except for black holes, and then 10 times that again, all black holes will have leaked out all their radiation, and there will be literally nothing in the universe but a blank sea of positrons. They call it the heat death of the universe. And to be one consciousness standing there staring at that, no, it would be like it's like a science fiction form of there's a story to be had here.
Yeah, torture in a way, because
be forced to witness that alone and with planets are long gone, civilizations long gone. I mean, it's after everything, after every single, you're talking about a billionth of the time in which you've got the expansion of the Big Bang to the last rock disintegrating into nothing, the last asteroid in the universe falling apart. That is like a 1/1,000,000th of the time it would take all black holes to expire into and burn out all of their own energy into nothing. And it just no. And just to be sat there watching that, and living forever is a very, very bad idea.
Right. Well, yeah. And besides, Douglas Adams already told us what it would look like. So therefore, that's it. There's a restaurant at the end of the universe. So we all know that.
there was an immortal guy in that in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that got so bored he decided to insult everybody in the universe individually. And I was like, yeah, I can totally understand that. That makes
Richard,
sense.
that is that character of the person who goes around in alphabetical order and insults everybody in the universe reminded me a lot of you, actually.
I'm not even going to pretend that's not what I would do if I was immortal. That is exactly what I would do if I was immortal.
I think we can all agree on that. Guys, it's getting kind of late. I'm sorry, the worse.
Well, I tried wrapping it up 15 minutes ago, but Kevin kept it going.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anymore. I love everybody. Good night. And then you guys finish it up.
Nikki was going to do the topic for next week, but there's always a chance she won't show up. So do either of you have a topic for next week as a backup topic?
I think we can come up with one on the fly if we have to.
Yeah, we're pretty good at winging it.
Let me think if anything. Give me 5 seconds. I'll see if anything springs to mind.
By
now. Okay, it's just a topical thing, but I actually think it's really, really fascinating what's happening with the tennis player Novak Djokovic at the moment.
Yes, the Djokovic,
right now, literally right now.
Yeah.
The Australian Open begins in a day or two,
and
we don't know if the world number one tennis player is playing because, we don't know because the final decision hasn't been made. And by the time next week, obviously, the decision is going to have to be made because the tournament's. Australia are they're ahead.
Yes.
It's okay if it's midday on Sunday in Australia. The tournament is right around the corner. For all I know, if I went onto BBC News now, it would have an outcome. So, it'd be very interesting to talk about.
Don't look it up. And for some reason, yeah. And I will do an '80s throwback to rap music. I've got a fat girl on my Djokovic.
Okay,
Jesus.
So next week it's COVID in January 2022, as exemplified by Novak Djokovic, and 80s rap music. Yeah,
there you go.
Those two subjects naturally just go together.
They go hand in glove, as it were.
Oh, also, if you want to send in some music to me, some of your music to me, I'll play it as an intro or something.
I've posted links in the chat.
Yeah.
Groovy.
And also Nikki was looking for, what was she looking for? Supposedly some sort of reproductive health show. She wants
you to get in touch with her. She said message me or Kevin as well with your questions so we can pass along to her. I just want to emphasize, do not message me. Okay. Message her or Kevin, but don't message me. I get enough people messaging me.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear from any of you. Just
do not send me a picture of your junk that says, what do you think is that? Okay, seriously? We know a certain big. We know a certain. Okay, listen. I'm not going to lie. There is a certain Bigfooter who did send me a picture of private parts today, and they were, what do you think is wrong with this? And I was not comfortable with it, and I did. This is not welcome.
Did you say, first of all, it's incredibly small? That would have been my response.
I don't believe it was this individual's units. But anyway, I don't know. I just didn't want to see it.
Oh. All right. Anyway, that'll wrap us up for this week. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. Good night, everyone.
Guys.
Cheerio.
Disco sucks.
It does not.